It's almost midnight, Watchers. Are you ready to join the Midnight Watchers to talk about their favorite strange and scary movies?
Welcome. This is Koji,
This is Quentin.
And Jennifer.
and this is the Midnight Watchers, and we're on episode 22. Congratulations, we made 22 episodes, guys.
And
Yay.
How's everyone doing?
Early in the morning.
It's early. Yeah, it's early to be on camera, smiling and energized, and your voice ready to speak. So this is the earliest we've ever recorded.
Yeah. Well,
it's like at midnight.
I'm a morning person, but if midnight I can't even talk anymore. I'm already asleep. I'm definitely a morning person. But today we're going to be talking in honor of Thanksgiving. We're going to be talking about a Thanksgiving themed horror movie, or not themed, but takes place around Thanksgiving, called Home Sweet Home. It's from 1981, and I'll read I'll read a little bit about the movie and tell you a little bit about it. An escaped mental patient steals the station wagon and makes his way to the Bradley's Thanksgiving celebration, where he plans to make them a little less thankful. It was directed by Nettie Pena and written by Thomas Bush. It's one of the few slasher films that center around Thanksgiving holidays, and it was directed by a woman. It was not prosecuted for obscenity in the UK, but it was seized and confiscated by the Obscene Publications Act in 1959, which is interesting. Film historian Adam Rofe, he wrote, for being so irredeemably terrible, Home Sweet Home has a strangely compelling pedigree. I've heard that star Steinfeld has no sense of humor about involvement with the film, which makes watching this travesty almost worthwhile. I thought that was an interesting quote. Since Quentin
Steinfeld was in it.
Steinfeld.
He was in it.
No, she was the lead actor.
Steinfeld's the lead actor.
Yeah. No, Jake Steinfeld. Sorry, Jake Steinfeld. Vanessa Shaw was the female, and Peter DePaul.
Oh, Vanessa Shaw, yes.
Yeah. So what did you think of the movie? Or why did you choose it, Quentin?
Well, because there were very few Thanksgiving movie, and I thought for some reason I saw it before, but I guess I haven't. There wasn't really nothing to write home about, because I thought the movie was pretty poorly made, even though sadly it was made by one of the first women who made horror films, and I think she's still around, and that might have been her one and only feature made ever. It's kind of like, I felt like it's really weird. The movie demonizes a drug user, and I don't know why this guy looks like he's very buffed. He's like kind of weirdly, crazily buffed and muscular. It's so strange. And I think that, do you guys know about the whole idea of why it is a big deal to be banned in the UK?
No, I don't even know why.
What happens is that the UK, so there were a lot of horror movies that were made in the 80s that were considered to be too bloody, and they were considered the video nasties. That's a UK kind of thing. So any of these movies went to the UK, they had to go through extensive kind of like, they were either banned or they had to be cut, like, in a really in the 80s, in a really sort of like, so they were mostly banned. The Video Nasties is actually like a list of banned movies in the UK. And for example, The Burning was a Video Nasty. And I don't know, so UK at that time had a big movement to ban a lot of these kind of very explicit horror films from America. And so that's why you hear that every time the 80s, and in the 80s, a lot of horror movies got banned because of that. And they're notorious for being banned.
Jennifer, what did you think of this movie?
Well, first off, I like that name, Video Nasties. This movie, it was like a little hard to like see things sometimes because the resolution was so low. It was really hard to find, guys, right? So like it wasn't streaming officially anywhere. So we all watched it on YouTube. So it was like so it just made it look even more cheap. I guess I found some things entertaining, but I would not recommend it for people to watch. It was just I think there's something to it that it was a Thanksgiving holiday centered horror movie. And so a time that you're supposed to be thankful and like everybody is eating and in this movie having lots of sex and like drinking and being merry, you have a killer. So I liked that, as opposed to say a Christmas horror movie. But yeah, there's a couple things about it that I guess are worth noting, but overall, not one of my faves. I also thought Quentin Lee, the bodybuilder killer guy, had a really interesting body. Like I was like, I've never seen a body shaped like that before. It was like an absolute male triangle, upside down triangle, and it was just his traps and deltoids and everything were so big, and his pecs were so big, and then he had this small waist. It was a very interesting body, and I guess he was Body by Jake from the 80s, which I vaguely remember.
I figured it was just it was steroids. That was like a steroid body as opposed to like a authentic, because I don't think you could get that from lifting weights and working out. That wasn't a normal body. But I found it like I thought it was weird. Like they kind of had a weird thing with the person who didn't speak English. Like I thought that was a really odd, like that whole interaction. But I actually when we first picked this movie, for some reason I watched the wrong one on Prime. It was a 2011, I think, or 2014 movie about called Home Sweet Home, and it was about a home invasion that I thought was a really, really good movie, and I got super excited about talking about it. And then I forgot that it was going to be Thanksgiving themed, and I realized it had nothing to do with Thanksgiving. And then I actually had to find this movie, and then I realized it was totally different. It was totally not as good. I just wish, I thought maybe the movie could have been better if it was like a family at Thanksgiving than like all these random strangers around Thanksgiving. I don't know, or not strangers. I guess they were friends, but Quentin, what did you enjoy about this movie? Did you enjoy anything, or did you just want to not watch it?
I would say enjoy the movie because I think that it's also, I think it's because the movie was transferred in a very bad way, but it does show that it does really kind of like, whatever we saw on YouTube, the version really showed the kind of like level of low budget filmmaking back in the 80s, where, because a lot of times, like when you do a telecine of a film, you need to create a low con print. So they definitely did not create a low con print to transfer into video. They just kind of telecine probably the answer print or something. So the contrast on the print is really high. And because video does not have that kind of latitude to be able to, at that time in the 80s, to have the latitude of a film. So if you had watched this film in the cinema, you probably seen a lot more, but because it's being transferred to video in a really bad way, without having a low contrast print, everything, you can't see anything in the dark. So you're missing a lot of the effects and a lot of the, so the movie just appeared really dark to me. And I really hated that experience in the 80s, watching like, especially low budget horror movies where they never made a low con print to transfer into video. And you have you have like a low resolution. And on top of that, you can't see anything in the dark. So a lot of like low budget horror movies back in the 80s were transferred really badly, like this movie. And it sort of reminds me of my kind of like childhood of watching bad horror films.
That's so interesting. So kudos to people that get to see these movies in the theater back then, right? Just a really different experience.
Yeah, I guess like independent horror films were able to release. People like, low budget companies would be able to release them in theaters, but they just never took care of like the post-production process to transfer it. And they just kind of dump it out on video. They just directly telecine the regular print, or sometimes the answer print, or even a release print of a movie, which you're not supposed to do. So the result, it's the master ends up not to be in really good shape. So I don't know. And I think this movie was probably didn't do that well and theatrically, and then nobody really cared about it. So, but somehow it's still floating around.
Yeah, I was trying to find the budget for it and kind of any of the numbers for it, but I couldn't really find anything. I don't think it cost a lot of money. It's interesting though, because we just watched Peter Jackson's Bad Taste right before this. And it was interesting because, I imagine that Bad Taste was probably done for less money, but it was done in such a better way. What do you think the difference between those two movies in terms of like a low budget and making it successful in terms of a midnight movie? What do you think, Jennifer?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, the other one was more supernatural. Are aliens considered supernatural? I mean, it was more sci-fi, let's just say, right? So
Yeah.
there was that cool sort of like intellectual element. I don't know, like creatures and stuff. So I feel like that lends itself to creativity in that sense. You know, they had the like the little masks, those faces, and like all the weird things happen that these aliens invading the planet are doing. Whereas this one's just like a straight slasher movie. So, and to be honest, guys, like this, there is probably was always my least favorite of the horror movies anyway, of midnight and horror movies. I was never super into slasher movies. I liked stuff that was always more like ghosts and monsters and zombies and things like that. So so it's sort of like a baseline. So in that sense, if you're going to have problems where the low contrast isn't fixed for video, and so the dark scenes are hard to see, and like there wasn't even like I couldn't really see the kills that easily in this one. I mean, you could kind of make it just a general idea of what was happening, but it was just so cheaply made or cheaply transferred or uploaded to YouTube, combination of all three. I'm sure that was really hard to feel the story. So maybe if the production quality was better, we could appreciate the slasher aspect of
Well,
it.
for me, I think, you know, the big difference to me is that I think Peter Jackson's movie didn't take itself seriously, that on some level that it was kind of a, like they're in on the joke. And I think there's a difference when somebody's in on the joke and when somebody's not, when they're taking it. Like, I think that Home Sweet Home was just, it was so, like, it felt like they were taking it very, very seriously. And this, they're trying to make a, you know, they're very, it's like a very serious movie. And a lot of the scenes were, even if you could see it, I thought they were kind of unintentionally funny. You know, and even that review that I read, I thought the reason I read is because I thought it was interesting to see like that some people, you know, that like people think it's a funny movie and that's why they enjoy it. But Quentin, what do you think? What do you think about the differences between those two movies?
Well, I mean, like Peter Jackson's, I mean, when Bad Taste came out, the reception was very good, right? It's considered kind of campy, but it's also was very revered because, you know, New Zealand knew that, you know, Peter Jackson was kind of a national treasure even back then. So they really encouraged him to make movies versus this was just like a movie made by, sadly, you know, one of a 80s horror movie made by, I think only 80s horror movie made by a Latina filmmaker. And I think she did try to incorporate sort of the Mexican culture into the movie by having this Mexican girl who's the Mexican girlfriend who doesn't speak English. But somehow even that kind of backfires because it just felt like why is this Mexican girl there kind of thing, you know? And it's almost like played to the stereotypes of, you know, any Mexican you see in movies are mariachis but I'm sure like politically it's very difficult for like a young, you know, Latina filmmaker to make first getting the job to make this movie is probably hard. And second, you know, for producers to even let you to put, you know, kind of Mexican element into it, you know, it's even kind of harder. And somehow it just sort of came out not really well. Again, like I think that even up to like, you know, stuff like Fast and the Furious, you know, when I just remember Justin was telling me that when he was making, you know, the early Fast and Furious movies, a lot of times what the studios think about, like, oh, any Asian element would be just like Buddha statues and putting in all these Orientalist kind of like things into the movie. And that is not what, you know, Asian Americans or any kind of minority in this country knew about, you know. So there's this, even when you are dealing with, you know, big studios and even way after, like in the 2000s, people still don't see minorities as who they are. And again, like, that's why I don't know what Nettie was going up against when she was making this movie, but there was something there. And there was this effort of bringing in kind of the Mexican element into it, even though it didn't quite work.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't even realize any of that stuff. I wish he would I wish it would have brought more in, because then we could have seen a little bit more. But you're right, it probably wasn't feasible at the time to do it. Jennifer, what was a moment that you will remember from this movie? Is there a moment that sticks in your mind, whether funny or good or scary or
I liked this mime son, this banished, hated mime painted face son. He was so weird. And I was like, what is this character? Like, why is he wearing the mime makeup and always playing a guitar? It was just such a weird, kooky, like, uh, oddball character. So that is good. I'm always going to remember that guy.
I think he was supposed to be a rock star, kind of like Kiss. Remember back in the days, Kiss
Oh,
was made up with a white face, and somehow he's
oh,
not.
duh. That's like Kiss. Right, right. Okay, I did see. I'm like, yeah. I mean, now I think realize it, but I was young, and so Kiss was always like this far away concept of something. Oh, okay, so that's what it was.
to
But
be
then he
fair,
was doing the magic tricks too. It was just, it
yeah,
was
to be
so
fair, Jennifer,
weird.
I thought he was a mime for a long time until Quentin said Kiss. I thought it was a mime. I was like, what is that? I was like, what is this mime doing in this movie?
No, he did say rock and roll forever because, like,
I
I
mean,
think he was being chased around the house, and I don't know why all these people were making out in the middle of the day. And then he was playing the strumming the guitar, like rock and roll forever. So that's why I go, oh yeah, he's supposed to be a rocker, like Kiss.
Yeah. It, for me, it was like my favorite part was just like I couldn't understand why all these people were there. Like they seemed like they have very tenuous relationships, and then also like all of a sudden people would keep going, and they're like, I'm gonna go look for this person, and it was just like hilarious because I was like, well, I mean, I guess it might have been early in horror movies, but if you're ever in a horror movie, you don't go look for somebody because those people end up dead. Like when those girls would like they were stuck in the car, the police, and by the way, those policemen were super, super creepy. That was my favorite part. The creepy policeman. What was what's a memorable part for you, Quentin?
I think that that shot of him injecting, maybe was it PCP in the beginning? So the movie kind of opened like with this guy drinking in the car. Then the killer killed him, right, and went to the car. Then he injected himself. Was that with PCP, right into his tongue or something? So
yeah.
I thought that's. I was always kind of freaked out by needles. So that shot really stuck in my mind. I was like, what is he doing? Was he injecting himself with steroids, or was it PCP? Because he was supposed to be on PCP. Is that how people do PCP? They inject themselves.
No, no
I
idea.
I was
don't
like,
know.
it's into the
Yeah.
tongue. Oh, so
That
scary.
sounds terrible. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, yeah, it just makes him look even more frightening, I guess. Yeah, that was gross. And I guess we know it's PCB because the radio, right? There was like the radio message. He did a good job though with like his growling and laughing, the Jake guy. He did good like for his character was him and the mime guy were better than like all the family the family people. They were both more believable than all the family making out in the middle of the day.
Although I'm kind of curious why there isn't a better kind of Thanksgiving horror movie, because I remember coming to because I was just listening to radio today on NPR, and they were saying like there was this one guy who would hold these Thanksgiving gathering, and he would cook for strangers in this little town in Massachusetts or something. And so I felt like, also when I first came to this country, it was 1988 or something, and I remember Thanksgiving was always a difficult time because I didn't have my family around. So I didn't completely understand why things people would go on for Thanksgiving, and then you would have to go. And I don't think my uncles celebrate Thanksgiving, so I never went to their homes per se. Um, and then we were always stuck in the dorm. So I think I always thought Thanksgiving is a perfect time for horror films to make horror films. But unfortunately, like there haven't been a lot of good Thanksgiving horror films
Well,
out.
yeah. Well, I think Thanksgiving is a great time also because a bunch of family comes together, and when you have family together, there's like the drama around family, but also just having a family around and people. Even a home invasion movie with family. That's that could be like a slasher movie if you needed it to be a slasher movie. But yeah, I'm surprised there's not more Thanksgiving movies. But maybe because Thanksgiving is such an American thing and nobody outside of America cares about Thanksgiving because nobody else has Thanksgiving. I wonder if that has
That's-
something to do with it.
No,
a
Canada
good
have
point, yeah.
Canadians have Thanksgiving.
Oh, they
it's
do?
it's a different day. I think it's like a month early or something.
Okay. But nowhere else has really. I mean, they might have something similar, but they don't have like the
Because
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving is really it was supposed to be the Americans being thankful to the Indians, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that correct?
that's the myth one. Yeah, that's part
But
of the
really,
myth.
they slaughtered the Indians.
Exactly. I mean, they used them and then they killed them was the general rule of Thanksgiving. I mean, when you're a kid, they put you in like the headdress, and then you have to play Pilgrims and Native Americans, which they still actually some schools still do it, which makes me crazy a little bit. But
So what is the tradition of Thanksgiving about? Is it about thanking the natives?
no, that like they were having a tough like time making of it, and then they were able to, with the help of the Native Americans, they created a crop and food, and they were able to come together and eat and celebrate this new land and this new society that they were able
So it's a colonial kind of thing. It's a British colonial kind of thing. Or is it like a puritanical kind of thing?
Pilgrims. Yeah, it was like a right, Jennifer, am I correct? You look like you're
I don't know if it was puritanical or British colonial, but yeah, from my understanding, it was like the time that you could they got along with the natives. But you're right, it's kind of muddled. It's not quite clear what it means.
But then and then later on they slaughtered the natives or something. What happened?
well, yeah, correct. They were at war later, and they ended up killing all of them. But like I think the mythology is always about coming together.
Yeah, you always see pilgrims with Indians having dinner together and sharing the food, and yeah, those two families, extended families coming together, and yeah, it wasn't.
So really, originally, it's
bloodshed.
really. So it's a pre-bloodshed dinner kind of thing. I don't know. So no, because recently there were a lot of basically a lot of like kind of like a lot of natives kind of like activists were sort of explaining Thanksgiving, like re-explain Thanksgiving as that's not what Thanksgiving was about. So I'm just kind of curious. So the traditional myth is actually it's really about like the pilgrims thanking the natives and getting along.
Well, and also
really
that they were able to survive because they were ill prepared when they got here, and they didn't know how to survive in this land. And it was really like with the help of Native Americans, they survived, and that's like part of the bounty of like right before, because it's right before winter, and so they're eating a big meal before winter, and then they're gonna kind of hunker down. But yeah, like that's the mythology around it. And it's like a lot of American mythology, there's a lot incorrect about it. It leaves out a lot of the terrible parts of that story. And there wasn't a Thanksgiving holiday forever. It was, I think it's a relatively new thing. It wasn't like something that they celebrate in like the 1700s or something, right? But what do you guys doing for Thanksgiving? Are you guys doing anything exciting?
No, not really. We here getting together with some friends, but it's even hard because typically I just invite some friends over. Now this year, because of COVID, you're wondering, I don't know.
Yeah. What about Jennifer? What are you doing?
Yeah, we have a Friendsgiving that we're doing, but we're all going to go get tested and share the test with each other. And we did that like the other month. We were very responsible. It was our friend's birthday. We all got tested that week, and then we shared the test with each other. But I mean, some people posted it, but I didn't post it because I'm still feeling like COVID shamed if I would, even though we were tested, but we weren't wearing masks because we were all good. And like, I mean, there's still a risk, right? A false negative, or the time you test to the time you show up. So yeah, I have one Friendsgiving, and then maybe I'll spend time in Palm Springs with my parents. But I think I'm looking forward to, I think I won't have my kid for a week, and I've had him nonstop for several weeks. So I will, well, not quite nonstop, but I felt I've had my kids so much lately. So I actually just look forward to being childless for a week, and he'll be with his dad, I hope. That's my thing. That's what I'm thankful for.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Quentin.
I heard on the radio that just if some of the doctors were saying they'd rather not go back home to the elderly parents, just because that is potentially, very risky, for older people who might get, COVID.
Yeah. I mean, for me, we're doing, we just get food from we buy the Thanksgiving dinner, and then we're just going to share with my stepdad and his family. But we're going to just deliver it as opposed to eat with them, because he's in that elderly 80 plus age, and everyone over there at that house is elderly. We don't want to infect him. So we're just going to bring food, give it to them, and then happy Thanksgiving, and that's about it. Thanksgiving is my least favorite holiday anyway. So I don't really like turkey, and I don't like the celebrating what it's like. To me, it's like celebrating Columbus Day, which nobody does anymore, and it's kind of ridiculous. So I'm not into it. I just watch football usually.
I'm making my own turkey. I'm excited. It's very easy.
It's just easier. It's just easier to buy it.
No, actually, you don't. I guess the easiest thing is you don't use. You just use a baking bag to make a turkey. Yeah. It's a lot easier, rather than just baking it on its own.
Jennifer, do you make turkey, Jennifer?
I've helped my dad before, but I've never done it by myself. Yeah, it's a big thing. I'll do side dishes though. I'll do like a green bean casserole or a stuffing. So yeah, if I'm gonna be with my parents, I'll make something. But I've never done it all by myself. It's a lot to time everything and that giant turkey and but I was gonna say, Koji, when you said you were gonna drop off food, I for some reason pictured you and your son going down to Skid Row and giving food. I don't know why. I could just see you guys doing that. You seem like the dad that would do that.
We used to volunteer on Thanksgiving, but the problem is that everybody volunteers on Thanksgiving, and so it becomes we've been there so many times where there's 50 volunteers and there's only really 3 volunteers needed, but everybody wants to help on Thanksgiving only. So we try to help on other days. So my son and I have passed out waters and bags of food to people separately, but I don't know if we're going to do that this year, but we generally I try to do things like that. But yeah, it's hard because a lot of those shelters have so much help on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and then the rest of the year there's nobody there wanting to help it off. So it all frustrates me a little bit. But thank you guys. It was great. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys. I know we're recording this a couple weeks early, but by the time people listen to it, it will be Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody listening, even though it's not my favorite holiday.
Happy Thanksgiving is the best time to watch horror films and midnight movies, I think.
I agree. So please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Please, if you're watching it on YouTube or on Facebook, make sure to go to wherever you listen to podcasts and find the podcast and subscribe and download and help us out. It'd be really greatly appreciated. Thank you, Quentin. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, everybody.
Bye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.
Bye.